Welcome everyone to my workshop, The Foundations of Android Development. And this is going to be from zero programming experience to taking your first steps in your Android development journey. This is sort of meant to be done in a way that even if you don't have any programming experience, then this workshop, you're going to learn a lot from it. If you do have a little programming experience, then that will definitely help. So just for my sake, can we get some reactions? Can people raise their hands if they do have any programming experience prior? I'm expecting this is gonna probably be a lot of people. Okay, so about half of us have some prior programming experience and half of us are, I'm guessing, new to programming. So this is good. This means that this is going to be quite helpful for all of us. So I'm honored to be the one to teach you guys your first foray into programming, and I'm especially happy that we're doing that through Android. So let's start with the workshop. So what should we expect from this workshop? So we're going to learn how to design beautiful screens with XML. Later in the workshop, we're going to get acquainted with Android Studio. This is the tool, our IDE, that we use for developing Android apps. And after this workshop, you're going to know how to continue your own learning with the foundations from this workshop. And I also want to point out right now that this is going to be very interactive. So expect to get hands-on quite a lot. Now, I want to say now as well that during the first part of this workshop, we're not going to be using Android Studio just yet. We're going to be using something else, but we will need to be using it later on. I posted, when I introduced myself, a few days ago, about a week ago, I posted a little guidance on how to prep for this workshop and how to download Android Studio, but I'm not sure how many of you guys have seen that. So can I get a show of hands again if anyone has downloaded Android Studio? Okay, probably no one. Mohammed, do you mind muting yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's cool. Welcome, by the way. Anyway,
Thank you.
Since probably none of us have downloaded Android Studio, I will go through it later on, but if you want to give that a quick Google while we're doing this, then that would be nice to get done ahead of time. Otherwise, we will allocate some time for this later, so either way is fine. Anyway, let's continue. What I expect from you guys for this workshop is I'm expecting you guys to have probably no programming experience, but some definitely helps. So we had a half and half thing there. I'm guessing you guys are considering Android as either a full career choice or a hobby. And that's pretty much it. So who am I? Who is this guy giving this workshop to you? So my name is Eric. I am on TikTok as Eric the Coder. I've got about 26,000 followers. I've been an Android developer for about 7 years, and I've been doing that professionally for 3 years. The other 4 years, I was just in school and in college. I do have an Android blog on my old website, ericthecoder.com. I have won an award in the Essex Digital Awards. This is in England, and I started doing Android development at the age of 15. And now I started working professionally at 19, and now I am 21. So what are we going to do during this course? What are the course contents? So we're going to learn about this concept about views. What is a view in Android, which is kind of at the base of everything when it comes to Android development. We're going to learn how to create these views using XML. That is the language that we use to design our screens in Android. And we're going to learn how to position these views using layouts. And later in the workshop, we're going to get our hands dirty with Android Studio. And at the end of all of this, we're going to build a nice little birthday card app. And so, like I said earlier, during this first part of the workshop, there is no Android Studio. We're going to use something else, you'll see, but we'll pick up Android Studio a little bit later on. So let's begin. I want to show you what XML looks like as first, because this is what we're going to be using to create our screens, to be designing what we see in an app. And this is a very simple XML of a little text that says, hi there. I'm going to break this down. So let's begin. So first, we need to get our head wrapped around the concept of views. Like I said, the views are at the foundation of everything in Android. They are every little thing we see in an Android app. So a view is a single visual element on the screen, and we have many different types of this. We have things like text view, image view, and button. And views are the building blocks of Android UI. So like I said, every little thing you see is a view. So some examples of this, like I've said earlier, are text view. We've got these 3 different kinds of text views over here. Any piece of text that you see in an Android app, this is probably a text view. We've got image views, which are images, and we've got buttons, where the buttons. So we've got a few different types. Over here, we've got a circular button. You usually see this on the corner of an app. We call this a FAB, a floating action button. We've got a standard button over here in the middle, and over here, which kind of looks like text. You might think it's a text view, but this is actually a text button. But we don't need to worry about all that for now. So I did say this workshop is going to be pretty interactive. So we're going to start off with a little quiz. I've shown you that every little element in an Android app is a view, and we've seen a few different types of views. Now, this is a screenshot of the Inbox app from Google that they've actually discontinued about last year, but I decided to pick it out because it's pretty nice for showing what views are. So over here, I've separated each of the views, and I want you guys to put in the chat, give me an answer like A, text view, B, image view. Give me some answers of how you think of like what view type do you think each of these are. So let's give about a minute for that, maybe 2 minutes. By the way, in this quiz or in any of the little quizzes we're going to have throughout this workshop, if you get something wrong, there's nothing to be afraid about. I'm not going to call anyone out. This is just for a little fun in our own learning, isn't it? Okay, so we've got a few answers here. Is there anyone who needs a little more time? I guess not. So time to reveal the answers. So this first image, well, it's an image view. We can see that it's an image of something. It's the logo. B, C, and D are all text views. They're all pieces of text styled in different ways. And this last one is actually a button. Like I've shown briefly earlier, it's a text button. So even though it's not got a kind of background of a button, it still is a button because it's got the other properties of a button. So now that we know what views are and a few different types of them, how do we actually write them? So like I said earlier, XML is the language that we use to write views, to make our screens, to design our user interface. And XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. And you may have heard of HTML before, which is used to make websites. This XML is something that is similar, but it's for Android. Yeah, as Kalimila had said, it's basically HTML, but for Android. And on the bottom right here, this is what a text view in XML looks like. So I have a bit of a more basic example here. It's the same example that we quickly saw earlier in one of the first slides. It's a little text view that says, hi there. And I'm going to break this down. So whenever you want to write a text view in XML, you start with an opening bracket. We use triangular brackets in XML. And then you have the type of view that you want to write. In this case, we want to use a text view. So we do open bracket, text view. And then this whole middle section over here, this is all the attributes. This is how our text view is styled. We always have a width and height, well, specifically a layout width and a layout height for our views, not only text view, but every kind of view. And wrap content over here is just saying that instead of giving it an exact size like 10 or 20, we're just going to let its size be the same as all of its contents. We'll go over that a bit more later on. And then, of course, we've got the text here, which says, hi there. And all of these attributes need to be prefaced with Android : before the title of the attribute. So we've got Android : layout width, Android : layout height, Android : text. This is going to be for all of them. And finally, we've got the closing brackets over here. So we've got opening brackets, we've got the type of the view, we've got its attributes, and we've got the closing brackets. This is how we do a basic XML element. This is how we write a basic view. So every view needs a layout width and a layout height attribute. So now let's actually start writing XML. And I said that we're not going to be using Android Studio for this first part of the workshop because I decided to take out this thing called the XML viewer. I wish I could say I wrote this, but actually I took this out of an online course that I personally started to learn Android development with. So I'm going to post a link to this XML viewer in the chat. And I want you guys to use this to write your first Hello World application. All right, then. I'm loving the code that I'm seeing from you guys, by the way. I'm loving the interaction. So that is how we do a little text view or a little Hello World. And so for the people whose first time programming is now, then congratulations, you guys have written your first Hello World. Does the order of Android layout matter? No, it does not. That is a very good question, and no, it doesn't. All of these attributes can be written in any order. What matters more is their presence, and as long as they are in between the text view word and the closing brackets, then all of them will process in the same way. So yeah, great question. And all of you, feel free, whether it's in the Discord or in the Zoom chat, feel free to pop any questions at any time while we're going along, and I'll do my best to answer. So let's keep going. I'm loving the momentum. So let's go on to styling our text. So when you guys open the XML viewer, you might have noticed that we've already got we've already got a few stuff going on in the text view that just came up by default. I see a couple of you have decided to keep some or all of it. And this is done because we can add more attributes to our XML view to style it. We can add text size, we can add text color, background, and even padding, which just kind of makes the background bigger. So let's figure out how to do this. We've got some examples here. We've got our text size, text color, background, and padding. And I'm going to go through each of these, so do not worry. So the first one to note is text size. And an example of a value we give to this is 20 SP, which stands for scale independent pixels. You can think of this as pixels for now. We'll get into the different size units used in Android a little bit later. So we've got a text size, which of course changes the size of the text. We've got text color, which changes the color of the text. And you can write this in two ways. if we can either use a predefined color, like we've got here in the example, at Android:color/white, which will give our text view a nice little white color, or we can use a hex color, like we've got here in the example that I used for the background. And so we can use hex color for both the text color and the background, and in the same way, we can use predefined colors for either of them. And if you are not familiar with how hex colors work, the first two letters or the first two characters stand for red, the second two stand for green, and the last two stand for blue. And these are values that go from 0 to F, which means they go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F. So the closer to F, the more of that color you have. So if I had FF0000, I would have a very red color. And if everything was F, I would get white. If everything was 0, I would get black. So let's go back to our example over here. So we've got our text view. Hopefully it makes a little bit more sense now that you've seen the attributes. It's got a text size of 36. It's got a text color, which is the hex color for a very white color. This is as white as it can be. Our background is a darkish blue, and we've got a little padding as well. But don't worry too much about the padding now. So I want you guys to guess. I've got another text view over here, and I want you to guess what attributes did I use to style my text over here. So while we've got that, I see we've got a few more questions over here. From Michelle, we've got, is SP the only unit we can use for text size? Nothing relative like REMS or EMS in CSS. The answer to that is strictly no. We can use other units, but preferably we only want to use SP, because I will get into this later on. But to put it in a nutshell, different Android screens can have different densities. And what I mean by that is some Android screens are very high resolution, and the cheaper ones tend to be lower resolution. And the pixel to pixel value on these screens can look different. So SP is a size unit we use for text in Android that scales based on the resolution of the screen. We don't have anything like EMS or REMS. It's just simply not a thing in Android. We tend to use a lot of hard-coded values very specifically. And another question says, can we only use hex and the name, or can we use RGB? So we can only use hex and the name, but the way we use RGB is through the hex. So like I tried to explain earlier, just kind of the first two colors, the first two characters of the hex are the red color, and then the next two are the green, and then the next two are the blue. But we don't have the sort of standard RGB that we can use in other places. Text color or RG white could be default, background color, text size. I don't think he used padding on this. Okay, so this is your answer for what I've got over here. Text size of around 24 SP, I think. Text color of FFF, basically white, and a background color of hex 0. I'm gonna be honest, I would be very impressed, like severely impressed, if any of you have guessed the exact text size, because even in the eyes of a professional, that would be impressive to say the least. So I've got over here, I've got the text as Nirvana, of course. The text color is Android color/white. This very well could have been hex color FFF. They are exactly the same, so either answer works. The background color is hex 0. So Michelle, you got this one right. Technically, I'd say you'd also had the text color right. And the text size is 32 SP. So you were quite close on this as well. But what matters most is that we've got a text size on this. We've got a white text color and a black background color. So awesome job on that one. So trying to answer the question earlier, I've got this slide here which explains the size units in Android just a little bit better. So when it came to the padding earlier, we didn't really go over it, but that was using a size of DP. And for the text size, we saw it using a size of SP. Now, DP is what we use for most things. These are density independent pixels. And this is exactly the same as how I was explaining it earlier. Some devices have a higher resolution, some have a lower resolution, and the way that pixels are rendered on those devices can look different on the screen. Because what higher resolution devices actually do is they get up to 4 pixels and squeeze them into the size of 1 pixel, and that gives it that sort of higher resolution. And density independent pixels just has that automatic scaling built in when we use it. Scale independent pixels, SP, they are very much the same as DP with one key difference, and that is for accessibility. You may or may not know that in your phones, you have an accessibility setting, which can increase the text size of all the text on your screen. And SP is what allows the text to scale with this as well. This is typically a feature used by people who are hard of sight, who are a little bit visually impaired, to help them see text better. And using SP just allows us to cater to those people as well. So this is an example of that being used. We've got our little text size adjuster in our phone settings. So in short, DP is what we use for almost everything in terms of Android unit size. But when it comes to text, we use SP. So I've got Michelle saying, so in theory, SP is most likely better. And for text, yes. For everything else, no. And I see you've answered it yourself too. So yeah, so fun fact, if you used SP on something like a rectangle view or an image view, if you increase this font scaling, that image view would be bigger as well. So you want to be careful about using SP on things that aren't text. So let's go back to the XML viewer. I want you guys to create your own text view or work or add to the one you've already made. And I want you to style it using text size, text color, and the background. And I want you guys to post your work of art in the Discord. Now we've covered all about text views, but we've got a few other kinds of views as well. And the next one I want us to cover is the image view. So a lot about how you write an image view is very much the same as a text view. But of course, we're not using text anymore. So we're not using things like text size and text color and all that. But we are using an image. And the thing that points to the path of the image is the Android source attribute over here, SRC. This points to the path of the image. And in an Android app, when you're doing this in Android Studio, you're going to have a drawable folder, which is where you're going to be using the image, which is where you're going to be storing the image. In the XML viewer, on the bottom right, or the bottom left over there, let me give that a quick check actually, you should have a list of available images. So if you created an image view and you used source and pointed to one of these images, like say at drawable ocean, then you should be able to create an image view with that image. And there's one other thing that I wanted to note when it came to image views, is this attribute here called scale type. Before I proceed, is drawable a default path or can we change its name? It is a drawable path. We can't change its name. And this is important because this is how the system knows where to look images, like where to look for images in. So anyway, about scale type. So both of these are very similar images. They've got the same size, but as you can see, they look a little bit different. And the reason for this is its scale type. This, you can see that over here, we've got it set to center crop, and over here, we've got it set to center inside. And this is just an attribute that determines how the image scales within its own boundaries. So we take the 300 dp and take the size of the image and say, okay, how am I going to resize myself to fit inside this 300 dp box? Do I want to crop myself so only one of my dimensions is shown, like only my height is shown and the width is cropped a little bit, or do I want to show everything? So we've got a few things here about scale type. We've got 3 different scale types that we are using and examples of them down here at the bottom. So we've got center, center inside, and center crop. And we've seen center crop used in the earlier example as well as center inside, but we haven't seen center. So at the bottom left over here, we've got center, where the image is centered and scales to its own size. So if it's bigger than the boundaries of the view, if it's bigger than the 300 dp per se, then it's just going to be its own size regardless. Center inside will scale down the image so that the whole image will always be seen. And center crop will scale down the image only until one dimension can fit. I want you guys to try this out. Go back to the XML viewer and add an image view with a width of 200, a height of 300, make it scale type center crop, and use any of the available images for its source. And as usual, post this in the Discord. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is this size called match parent. When we did the text views earlier, for both the width and the height, we used wrap content, which makes the size of the view just wrap around the size of the text. So the more text you have, the bigger it is. The less text you have, the smaller it is. And for the image views that we had just earlier, we did them in exact dp sizes. So we had 200 dp, 300 dp, and this gave the image a very definite size. So the next thing we want to look at is match parent. And I promise, I know this is a lot of ways to use sizing in Android, but it's really just these 3 things: wrap content, match parent, and numbers. So we use match parent if we want to make the width or the height, well, match the size of their parent. And this is very nice for making sort of background sort of images or other views. Andrew, I love this picture. What's this one from Mad CSGO? Oh, the car. We love it. So match parent used to fill up the size of the whole screen. If you do just the width, it's just gonna apply for the width. If you do just the height, it's gonna apply for the height. Bearing in mind, you can use any combination of this, like the height can be 200, the width can be match parent, or they can both be match parent, in which case it takes up the size of the whole screen. So I want you guys to once again go back to the XML viewer and use your image view, add your image view, but this time make it take up the whole size of the screen. And once again, post it. See, the thing I love about Android is we've only been here for like, what, half an hour, maybe a little bit more than that, and already we're able to make views show in our phone that just look beautiful. So I believe that's a fair few. I'm loving the work, guys. Let's continue. So that is everything we want to learn about image views for now. We've learned about text views, we've learned about image views, but there's still the question of how do we have more than one view in the screen at the same time? This is where layouts come in. Oh, a layout is a special type of view that can have other children views. And we have different types of layouts that determine how its children are positioned. And over here on the right, I've got an example of a linear layout. And what that is, I'll explain in a little bit, but we can write a layout like this. And with this linear layout, we've got an image view and a text view, and they go from top to bottom. And you might notice straight off the bat that the closing tag of the linear layout looks a little bit different. We don't have a slash closing bracket anymore, but instead we've got just the closing bracket, and then we've got other views inside of it, slightly indented, and then we've got what looks like another closing tag of the linear layout below the views inside of it. Now, what I didn't tell you guys before is that the slash closing bracket is actually a shortcut of just having the triangular bracket and then the other closing bracket that you see of linear layout. If you didn't want to have those two things as two separate objects, then you would just use slash and then close it. But in a layout, like a linear layout, you want to have other views inside of it. It's this whole concept of having views inside of another view. And this is why we sort of open them up. We don't close them immediately. We create a linear layout. Everything after that is effectively inside the linear layout. It's also indented. And then we close the linear layout using the closing tag that you see down here. So apparently I've animated it, but I completely forgot about that. So we've got a few different types of layouts, right? We've got three that are quite commonly used. We've got the linear layout, the frame layout, and the relative layout. And these all have different purposes. A linear layout is where children are positioned either horizontally or vertically in a line, sort of one after the other. So this is what you've seen over here. This is what you also see over here. In our linear layout, everything goes from top to bottom. In a frame layout, children are simply placed and stacked on top of each other. It's basically like the no layout. So if you wanted to stack everything, or if you just wanted utter chaos, you would use a frame layout. And a relative layout is a little bit more involved, but you can place views relative to each other or to their parent. So over here, I've got the image, which is kind of at the top left of its parent, and I've got the text and the button sort of positioned like to the right of the image or to the bottom of another text. That's how a relative layout works. It's a little bit more flexible. So let's focus on a linear layout for now. So like I've shown you earlier, we open up the linear layout by using the closing bracket without the slash. We put our image view and text view inside of that linear layout, and then we close the linear layout with this syntax. And what's important in a linear layout is we've got this orientation here, which says vertical. By default, the orientation of a linear layout is horizontal. And if you did that, then views would sort of be positioned left to right. If you want them to go top to bottom, then you would have to specify orientation to be vertical. And you might also notice that on the text view, I've got a margin over here. That's something that we'll also talk about a little bit later on, but typically we like to use margins to make things look just a little bit better. So I want you guys to go back to the XML viewer again, and use a linear layout, create a vertical layout with an image and two text views, a title and a subtitle view. So similar to what I've got over here, maybe without the button. So have an image and have two text views, maybe style them a little bit different, but use a linear layout to do that. And again, feel free to use any of the available images. Feel free to customize your image view and your text views however you like it. So here is my little example of the linear layout. I decided to use the Android Marshmallow again. And I gave it the subtitle because we love them, because let's be real, who doesn't like marshmallows? And a fun fact, Android Marshmallow is my favorite Android statue out of all of them there, because, I mean, come on, it's an Android with a big marshmallow. What's not to love? So let's talk about margins. So I see some of you guys have already used margins, and this is really awesome. And let's talk about that a little bit more. We can use margins to space views further away from each other in the very typical literal definition of a margin. And what you've guys seen me do in the last slides, and what I've seen you guys do, is we've got layout margin, and we've given it a value of, let's say, 16 dp. And what this does is it applies a margin around all sides of the view. Now we can also specify the margin to only be on certain sides of the view. Like we can say margin top to be 32, or we can say margin left to be 16, and we can do any combination of that. So we can do either single sides, or we can do all sides together. So here we've got some examples. We've got margin top, bottom, left, and right. And we've also got margin start and margin end. And these are effectively the same as margin left and right, respectively, but they are meant to support right to left layouts as well. So you might be aware that languages like Arabic, they write their text from right to left instead of left to right like English does. And so start and end is meant to support it that way. So alternatively, you can use layout margin to apply margin in all directions. So I want you guys in the XML viewer, I mean, some of you already have, but I would like to see these margins being applied by all of you now. Okay, we've got a couple questions here. I'm first going to read the one from Johnny. Are buttons scaled with SP or DP since they contain text? That is a really good question. If you're talking about the width and the height of the button, you would do DP because that is the size of the button itself. But you also have the attribute text size, which can be used in the button. And for that one, you would use SP. Now, what if, Kalimullah's asking, what if we write the margin on one line, let's say 12 dp, then we write the same line after that line, but with the margin of, let's say, 32 dp. Will we see 32 dp since it overlaps the first line? I think when you're using this in Android Studio, bearing in mind, XML viewer might act a little bit differently because this isn't actually Android code, it's just some clever CSS stitched together. But I believe you would get a compiler error saying that you've got two of the same attributes. But anyway, we've got one more layout to go through before the project, and I'm a little bit conscious of time. So I am going to proceed, but very nice use of margins. Over here, I've got my example once again. I've applied a little bit of margin top on top of the text that says Android Marshmallow. And I've got an even smaller amount of margin above the subtitle. So the last layout that I want to go through before we do our project is the relative layout. I'm going to skip over frame layout because, as useful as it is, for the purposes of this workshop, we can use relative layout to achieve the same sort of stacking that frame layout does. And relative layout is a little bit involved because we can position our views either relative to each other or to their parent. And we've got quite a few different attributes that we can use for this. As you can see over here to the left, I've got layout to left of, to right of, above and below. That would be to align it to another view. I've also got alignment to its parent, like say align parent left, align parent right, and this would align the view to the left of the parent. or the right of the parent. So here's an example of that in action. You might notice that I've got these IDs over here, and these are ways that we can identify each view so that we can align them together. So on the image, I've got an ID. I've simply called it image, but this ID can be whatever you want. And on the text view after it, I'm saying I want this text view to be positioned to the right of the image. And I've got that in that layout to right of attribute over there. So an ID is a tag that a view can have to distinguish itself. And the view can use another view's ID to position itself relative to it. Now, IDs have many uses, and this is just one of them. And a value of an ID can be anything you want to call it. This text view can be called title. This text view can be called subtitle if I wanted. This text view's ID can be called the most titular text view ever. It's completely up to you. So in the XML viewer, I want you to create your own relative layout like this one. Feel free to use whatever image and text you like. And I'm going to show you, again, some code that I had for the relative layout. This one's showing it to the right. So use layout to right of and make your XML similar to this one. I know I've got them in two different slides, the example and the code, so feel free to put in the chat if you want me to switch between one or the other. You want me to stay in the code or do you want me to stay on the image? The code, please. Okay. So some things to note about a relative layout. By default, views are always aligned to the top left of their parent if you don't specify anything. Views can be stacked on top of each other. Views can also be centered, and we center views using these attributes, center in parent or center horizontal and vertical. And this is just an example of that in action. We've got center in parent over here for the title in front of an image view that is being used as the background. So we've got 13 minutes left, and I am not sure this is enough for the project, but we'll try it anyway. So we'll create a birthday card app that we can share with our friends, but first we need to install Android Studio. And I would like to go through this quite quickly because, well, we've only got 13 minutes left. So how we install Android Studio is we have to Google Android Studio. It's going to be the first non-ad result you see from developer.android.com. And it sort of looks like this. Is Android Studio the only way to make apps? It's not the only way, but it's become the standard. Before Android Studio was created, about maybe some 6 years ago, people were using Eclipse to make Android apps. But now pretty much everyone uses Android Studio. Andrew, thanks for the link. That is exactly the right link for this. So you're gonna come across a website very much like this. That middle green button is going to automatically give you the right Android Studio version you need for your machine. And you'd want to go ahead and download it and install it. Going through the basic download and install process with all the default settings should work. So go through the installer, and once you're done, you should be ready to use Android Studio. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to give a quick tour of it, just to show a little bit about what it looks like. Instead of the XML viewer, we will be writing in an XML file, normally called activity main. We can have different activities. They just refer to different screens, which is why you see me having activity busing say. I just wrote a separate activity for this workshop. And you would also want to set up your test device. I know I'm going a little bit fast here, but maybe once you go download and install everything, then we can go back to this as needed, given we also only have like 10 minutes left. It's 1 gigabyte. It's gonna take me 10 minutes to download with high-speed internet. So yes, project, let's go. Okay, we're probably not gonna be able to do this together, but you can watch and see, and then maybe after the workshop, when you've got some of your own time, you can give this a try. And if you need a little bit of extra help, of course, you've got Google, but also you've got me. You can see my Discord now. I'm also on Instagram and everything, and I try to reply to everyone. I'm not some super celebrity that's got millions of messages that I can't reply. I'm very open. So if you want to try this in your own time, need a little bit of help, message me in Discord or message me on Insta, wherever. So we've got here set up for an emulator. I think another thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share these slides. And I believe Kyrus has also got a recording for this, so there's going to be plenty to go back to. So yeah, if you want to continue doing Android in your own time, you should have plenty of resources. So we've got the slides for setting up an emulator, for setting up a physical device, and now we go on to the next part, which is birthday card. Now, even if you don't have Android Studio, let's follow along. We're just going to go through a little bit of the theory about it. Just think about what's our strategy for building the app. And then by the time you do get around to this, you should be able to fairly confidently do this, I'm hoping. So when we create an app, when we approach a screen like this, we tend to follow a 3-step process when creating it. So we start by selecting the views. We sort of identify what views are there. We determine how we position the views. And then we want to figure out how we style the views. So select, position, style. I'm making an app that spams people with food vendors that sell sushi and pizza near them, definitely. You are a dangerous Android developer, Kalimula. But at the same time, that sounds really awesome. I respect it. So, selecting the views. What views do we have on screen? I want you guys to tell me what views do you guys see here? Maybe post it in the Discord since we got all the discussion on there already. A lot of it has been about sushi and pizza, but let's go back to the views, shall we? Tell me on the Discord, what views do you think we've got on the screen? Wait, is the main activity default or did you make that? Main activity is kind of the default. Of course, you can change the name of it, but when you create a new Android project, Android Studio will generate all the folders and some of the files for you. And it always generates a main activity. This is kind of your main screen when you open the app. Okay, so let's reveal the answer. It is indeed, we've got one text view, we've got another text view, and we've got the image view surrounding it. So we've got 2 text views and an image view. So we're done selecting the views. Now let's go on to positioning the views. Now, what layout should we use? Is this a linear layout or is this a relative layout? And why do we use that layout? So tell me in the Discord. Come on, guys. Okay, we got linear layout as the first answer. Tell me, why do you think this is linear? Come on, give me a reason, guys. I want to hear it. It's not side by side because they are aligned. I wonder, are they aligned? So I am sorry to tell you guys that the right answer is a relative layout. And the reason for that is we've got one text view at the top left. It's aligned to the top and left of the parent. We've got our second text view, which is aligned to the bottom and right of the parent. And we've got the image view, which, as I said, we can stack views on top of each other in a relative layout, and the image view is just matching the parent, so we don't even need to align it. But anyway, let's not feel too bad. We are done with positioning the views. Now let's go to styling the views. What attributes are we using here on the text view and in the image view? Tell me, what are we using for the size or our text size, text color, scale type? So we've got our first text view here, text size of 28 SP, text color white, text view is very much the same. So really well done for seeing that they are the same text size. And we've got our image view, which is center crop. We do definitely have some margins here. I didn't write it down, but you'd be correct for saying that we do have margins. So that is for styling the views. Now, we're not going to do this now because 2 minutes. However, if you guys manage to do this in your own time, send it to me on Discord or on Insta, and you are officially graduating as Android developers. And I will be super proud of you. If you open Android Studio, you're going to find a folder res layout activity main.xml. That's where you want to do it. So in this workshop, we learned how to create and style some basic views using XML, using layouts. We kind of brushed over Android Studio and a birthday card, but let's ignore that bit. So congratulations. Send me over that birthday card and I will give you your diploma as an Android developer. So where to go from here? We've got other different kinds of views that we can learn about. Right now, the apps are very static. We've only learned how to make the screens using XML. But if we want to bring our apps to life, give them any real functionality, we will be using the Kotlin programming language to do that. So I want to let you guys know that I am making an online course. I've made a website that I've called Cifra, and this is going to be my online course platform. I've made this website literally only since yesterday, and it's at cifra.io if you want to check it out. And I am doing a online course giveaway. So among you guys, among the, what's it, 15 or 16 of you, I will do a giveaway for you guys. 3 of you guys are going to have this full course for free. The course isn't made yet, but I'm going to start making it in a couple weeks. And if you get the course, you're going to have early access to all the videos as soon as they're produced and published. So if you want to, I'm going to post the link in the chat to the giveaway and you can join, and you've got a pretty good chance of getting that free full course. So I'm currently pricing the course at just under $50 US. The 3 winners will get it for free, obviously, but this 50 is already a 75% discount. And when I do finish the course, which will probably be in a couple months, I will be pricing this at just under 150. So whether it's through the giveaway or whether you just have faith in me as a course teacher, course author, and you would like to get early access, now would be probably the best time to do it. And thank you guys for attending the workshop. It has been truly amazing. I am really proud about how far you guys have gone. And honestly, thank you for attending my workshop. I'm going to post the links to those in the chat, but awesome time, you guys. Awesome time.